What's up again, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. For what it's worth, I'm back here at my old house doing a little bit of fixing up to put it up for sale. I have a lot of time to think while I'm wandering around by myself, and generally I should be cranking up music and listening to something positive, but all these thoughts going on in the back of my head don't rest easy, and there are lots of them, and that's why I have this channel, to share them. I generally stray away from politics, but there's a particular line, a particular quote from a book that I really wanted to share with you that I'm sure you've heard by now, recently used. And that quote goes something along the lines of, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command." And it really, reading 1984, 25, 30 years ago, I never thought that we would get to the point where we would have to really test the waters of human ability to think for ourselves as individuals, which is, in my opinion, one of the most crucial things we have as people. To be able to stand firm in your viewpoint, yet being pliable enough, I guess, to receive new information to change your mind if need be. And sometimes things are just very cut and dry and obvious, and other times they're much more complicated. And when it comes to different viewpoints, different politics, I completely understand why people, lean one direction or another, or think that things should be handled this way or handled that way. As humans, this is what democracy, in a sense, is all about. For many people to get together and say, this is what I think is best, and this is what I think is best. There are many that would argue that a democracy is not a very good form of government, but I never thought that. In fact, it was Winston Churchill who said, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except all the others that have been tried." And what he meant by that, obviously, is that we don't have a perfect system. A socialist system would only work if everyone agreed on what the social policies should be. A capitalist system only seems to work for the few, and bringing a few people along with them, but the complex nature of society doesn't allow us to say that this is the way or that's the way, or this is how to have the best future for us. I argue with people against socialism. I argue with people against capitalism. I don't think that there is a perfect system that we could possibly live in. We are human beings. We weren't meant for countries with millions, if not hundreds of millions of people, all vying for attention and all vying to have their opinions be heard. But we're doing the best that we can. And I don't know which policies are the most beneficial for our country long term. I can't tell you if perhaps tariffs will be beneficial long term. I can't tell you how bad immigration really is. I can look at the numbers, I can look at the statistics, I can say, well, this is what's happening and this is what's happened in the past, and try to derive a conclusion or an opinion on the situation. But generally, we're all just left discussing these things. But there is one aspect that I just can't get over, and that is predation and trafficking, and abusing people who cannot speak for themselves, whether it be trafficking adults or trafficking children. Anybody out there who is involved in any type of pedo bullshit deserves to be hung in the public square. In fact, if I had my way, I would be much easier on a lot of crimes, but as far as capital punishment, if you will. But I would have absolutely no problem seeing pedos hung in the public square, and I would bring my kids to see it. There's something wrong with a society that allows children to be abused in any way, shape, or form. When it was exposed that the Catholic Church had a serious pedo problem, what did they do? They doubled down. The church. They would send a priest who had been accused of abusing kids overseas to another country, to a different church, so they didn't have to be held liable for their actions. No, they wouldn't excommunicate them, kick them out of the church. So here you have one of the, quote, highest moral offices in the world that allows people in their ranks to abuse children. And that's okay with them. What I don't understand is why it is so hard for people to think that people who have no religion, people who have no real interest in church, or people who just use it as a way to get other people's votes, who may be involved in serious issues concerning a man with an island, that people are willing to cover for people and say, nope, there's no way that my guy could be a pedo. There's no way that my guy could have harmed children. There's no way that my guy would be an abuser. And this is what we're facing right now. But I would like to say, there are so many people that have come together on this issue of these files, whether they exist or they don't exist. I think the very best quote I've heard was, release the files and imprison the files, PH. I think one of my subscribers shared that with me. I really like it. But, you know, that's the thing. A lot of my viewpoints in life are up in the air. Like, is this good or bad? You know? Is capitalism good? You know, does competition breed more innovation? Is this beneficial? These are ideas that we wrestle with all the time. You know, life isn't perfect. You know, things are complicated. But there just seems to be this one thing that cuts through all the bullshit. Don't fuck with the kids. No pun intended there. But this is such a simple thing to me. To stand against anybody who is even remotely involved in abuse of another human being that doesn't want their advances. You know, there's a lot of assault and sexual issues within, say, Burning Man culture. A lot of people taking a lot of drugs, getting into situations where they're dancing together, and because of these issues, there's a huge movement around consent and groups that form around informing people that, hey, you should have consent from another person before you touch them, before you sleep with them. Don't go out and abuse, you know, your privilege just because somebody is high or, you know, not in their right state of mind. For a guy like me, this is such a common sense thing. I could never, ever take advantage of somebody who was drunk or high, but especially not a person who's, let's say, a person who is even sober, who just wants to get ahead, or, you know, says, well, I'm going to sell myself because I need to succeed in this world, right? It's the only way. A lot of people are convinced that the only way that they're going to, you know, survive in this world is to sell themselves. And it disgusts me that not just that this happens, not just that the people find themselves falling victim or allow themselves to fall victim, but that well-knowing people who know better feed into this. Now, I've always been aware that there are large circles of people like this, like the Weinsteins of the world, right? The predators. Of course, there are people trying to clear the name of some of these guys by saying, oh, well, they were charged in a case where they didn't actually do it, or there's no real... Look, I have no tolerance, zero tolerance for perverts and pedos. There's nothing you could say to me that would change my mind at this point. I mean, at any point in my life. Like, if you tell me this person has abused somebody, you know, knowingly, they're a piece of shit to me. And they deserve whatever's coming to them. You know, we have to take a stand. Somewhere in our lives, we may be kind of iffy about things, but there has to be a line that's drawn in the sand somewhere. And for me, that is people who abuse other people. I've I'm gonna say I've worked hard to, but I haven't worked at all to be just be a good person to other people. I can be an asshole, right? I can tell people off. Hell, I can even treat kids like shit if they're little assholes. But the thing is, I would never cross the line by putting my hands on a minor, a person who's, too young to know better, or even an adult who didn't welcome my advances. This isn't just, men or women, this is just anybody. This is just a common sense thing to me. You don't fuck with people. You don't abuse people. That's not how everyone thinks. And as I said, when I was, I've realized that this has been an issue in Hollywood, and I've known it's been an issue in, in politics, in both parties, right? It doesn't matter which party you're part of. They all support this shit. And now we have an accused trafficker who somehow just died in jail, and his girlfriend, who has been charged with what, like 1,000 counts or something crazy, of like over 1,000 people that they trafficked to this island, and she goes to prison, gets charged, and then Trump's personal lawyer goes down there and talks to her and puts her in a minimum security prison. And mind you, they have to completely revamp the way this prison operates now, because it's minimum security, but they have to upgrade all these different security features because now they have a high-profile prisoner there who is a rapist, an abuser, and one of the most horrific people in the world. Courts have decided, the people have decided. Why are we giving special treatment to people who abuse children? Why can't we see these files that supposedly exonerate the man who won't release them? And this has only led me down one road. Release the files, show us the truth, even if they're redacted. We know exactly what's going on out there. All these perverts from both parties are trying to cover their bases, trying to cover their asses, and getting the people, us, to fight amongst each other, to fight amongst ourselves about who's right and wrong. And I'll just tell you this. Nobody has all the answers, but nobody should be protecting perverts. So I just wanted to get that off my chest for what it's worth. I'm just dumbfounded by the mental gymnastics people are using to justify why we are protecting pedos. And it's disgusting, and I will not stand for it. I will always speak against it. And if you're somebody who maybe thinks that, hey, well, it's not what it seems, please do explain in the comments. Please explain to me how a convicted pedo can be sent to a minimum security prison, and that benefits the people, the victims. It's disgusting. It's wrong. It's just fucked up. And I hate to think that that's the world we live in. I really do. But I've always known it, we all know it. We know what goes on with people who are powerful. They're corrupt. They're all corrupt. Because the only type of people who seek power are corrupt people. Corrupted mentally, corrupted in so many different ways that you can't see from the outside. But they give away their bullshit pretty easily. It's a lonely path to see that, and to try to point it out and to have folks defend it. But I absolutely cannot defend anybody who abuses other people. And we as a society need to weed out these dirt bags. And if they all end up, if they all end up with cinder blocks on their ankles, it won't be enough. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Be well.